The most frustrating thing about moving somewhere new from out of state is trying to figure out which area you should live. In this video, we're going to look at all of Portland and the metro area on a map, talk about some of the differences, talk about the east side versus the west side, and much more. Now, if this is your first time to the channel or you've been here and you haven't already, if you want to get more videos like this, make sure to subscribe, tap the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. Without further ado, let's check out the map. All right, this is Portland, Oregon, and more specifically, this is the Portland metro area. So if you zoom out a little bit, you can see where this white part is. This is going to be more or less the urban growth boundary. So these are all areas where you have Portland proper, and then you have suburbs surrounding and connected to Portland, surrounding the Portland metro area. On the outskirts of the metro area, you do see some small towns as well. We do have a video on that. I'll link to that if you want to check out some information on areas like Newburgh and Sandy. But we're going to focus on Portland. This video is for anybody thinking about moving to Portland, moving to the Portland metro area, and trying to figure out where they should be looking for a home. As you can see, Portland is separated by the Willamette River. You have the west side and the east side of the river, so that's Portland proper, as well as suburbs that lie on either side of the river as well. You'll probably see the higher volume of suburban areas on the west side of the river, and Portland proper extends pretty far east all the way into Gresham over here. We're going to talk about all of that. Where should you live when you're moving to Portland? I think really for anybody, it's going to come down to where you're working. Are you moving to Portland for work? Well, where your job is, if you're not working from home, but if you're moving here to work, you're probably in an office. You're probably going to be looking where your office is and at least taking into consideration the commute and how far you are away from an office. The other thing would be really just lifestyle. I don't think that there is anywhere in Portland where you wouldn't want to raise a kid or raise kids. So, you know, there's not going to be, this area or that area where I'm going to say, hey, there's going to be some good options for you, but if you have kids, stay away from these spots. There's probably plenty of people who would argue me on that point, but you go around anywhere in Portland itself or anywhere in the suburbs in particular, you're going to see a lot of families. And it's not just families, but of course that is a big consideration when people are trying to determine where they want to live. So at the center point of the metro area, you have downtown Portland, where downtown itself is here on the southwest side, southwest, anything south being south of Burnside here. This is, see the Burnside Bridge, there's East Burnside, West Burnside. Anything south of Burnside is south, so southwest, southeast, and then you have northeast, northwest, North Portland up here. And so downtown itself, what's considered downtown is this southwest part of the city. You also have northwest, which I think a lot of people would call downtown, where you have the Pearl District, Northwest 23rd, Northwest District. On the east side of the river, though, you can see in close into the river, a lot of this is pretty industrial, but this is an area that is really kind of up and coming. You see bars and restaurants coming in here, and then you can see all of this is commercial. So these aren't big high-rise buildings over here on the east side, but these are all industrial commercial buildings in here, in from about 12th. And you'll see that does kind of continue up into northeast as well and into North Portland. So this is the city, right? This is the urban area, where really the only, type of living you have is like apartments and condos. Zoom out a little bit, and then you start to see these Portland neighborhoods in northwest, southwest, southeast, northeast, and again, let's not forget North Portland. For the sake of zooming, it's easier just to be down here, but plenty going on up in North Portland as well. Definitely some popular neighborhoods up there. We're not going to dissect every neighborhood here one by one. In fact, we're not even necessarily going to talk about the pros and cons of northeast versus northwest, southwest versus southeast, and different variations of that topic. Really, it's just a matter of wrapping your head around and getting a feel for what you're looking at overall. If you're moving to Portland and you're looking at a map and, okay, what am I looking at? Or I see a house in this neighborhood or in this suburb, what is it actually like there? I think the biggest thing to know overall is that there's a big difference on the west side versus the east side. I'm not going to say one is better than the other. I'm not going to say one is more desirable. Everybody's preferences are different. But there, again, is going to be just a completely different feel on the west side versus the east side. Now, probably the biggest reason for that is the topography, at least part of it. One of the biggest reasons, you have the West Hills right here. So all of this green space, we can zoom in a little bit. I mean, this is all Forest Park, so this is all actually inner city park. You see all these trails. It's pretty cool. But even up here where you see some of this residential development, this is like very steep hills up here in like Northwest Heights and Forest Heights in that area. But these West Hills kind of continue down on the west side, very hilly, all the way down, really kind of into Lake Oswego here. So these West Hills really separate Portland, the city, and everything else on the west side of these hills, the Tualatin Mountains, really primarily referred to as the West Hills. Now, on the east side of the river, this is where all the original development in Portland took place. So, if you look at kind of this sliver right here, really right in here, kind of hugging the river, really development took place in the early 20th century, so early 1900s. And you'll see a lot of neighborhoods in here on this east side where, the average year built was like 1920, 1930, up to maybe like 1945. And so you get newer as you get out east and further west, further south and north for that matter. But this is all very, very dense, urban residential areas. So, this is all close in southeast Portland, and you can just see how dense it is. Now, these are some of the most popular, kind of hip areas in Portland. And on the east side, you have these entertainment districts and these corridors running east to west. Division Street, Hawthorne Boulevard, Belmont, Stark, even Burnside to some degree. Sandy's got some stuff going on. So, if you want to live in an area that has more going on, higher quantity of restaurants, breweries, coffee shops, a lot of the stuff that Portland's really known for, you're really going to find it in here. Southeast, probably at the highest volume. Northeast, a ton. Similarly, up in Northeast, it's going to be pretty dense residential, as you can see, and that continues on into North Portland. West Side's a little bit different when you look at Portland. You have, again, downtown, big buildings, condos, offices, little industrial area further up north. Northwest 23rd, this area in here, this Northwest District, this is going to be a lot like some of those Southeast neighborhoods as far as the feel. You can see how dense it is. Then you get up into the hills, and this is where, you get into some nice big luxury homes, historic homes, really cool architecture, definitely higher priced, kind of all along the West Hills. But Northwest is interesting because, a lot of it is just kind of this concrete jungle. And then, you have Forest Park, and then you have up in the hills. Now, Southwest feels really different than anywhere else in Portland in that, again, you are kind of down more in this valley. It's hilly in here, for sure. You get rolling hills and everything, but it's not quite the elevation of the West Hills. So you get on this back southwest side of the West Hills here, and it really feels more like a suburb. So the equivalent in southeast to southwest you know, completely different feel. A lot of parks. You can see all the trees, all the green spaces. You know, winding streets, kind of meandering streets. It's a little bit harder to have a sense of direction if you're going around Southwest Portland. So just such a different feel, but you are super close into the city, really easy to get out to the east side or up in Northeast, North Portland from Southwest. So again, over here on this east side, a lot of in Northwest, it's going to be more of an urban feel, even though it's dense residential. Again, Southwest Portland's going to feel more suburban. Now, if you zoom out a little bit, we look at the metro area as a whole, there's still going to be a pretty sharp contrast between the east side of the river and the west side of the river. The west side is really dominated by Beaverton and Hillsborough, so this whole corridor through here, we have Highway 26 kind of on the north side of this. And there's Bethany, Cedar Mill areas up here that are really popular. Down through Beaverton, Hillsborough, and South Beaverton. So this whole area in here on the west side of Portland is really Beaverton and Hillsborough. I mean, you have Aloha in the middle. Aloha is an unincorporated area that's kind of half Beaverton, half Hillsborough. Beaverton, Aloha, Hillsborough is, you know, really what you're going to be getting on this west side, outside, you know, beyond Northwest and Southwest Portland. But then down south, you break a little bit further away from Portland, and you get into some really, really suburban feeling areas, starting with Tigard, into Tualatin, into Sherwood, and into Wilsonville. So Wilsonville, again, Sherwood, Tualatin, Tigard, this corridor through here, down 99 and I-5, kind of south of Beaverton, really starting to get into suburbia. You get into newer developments, you know, meaning like the last 20 or 30 years, which you can get a lot of that in South Beaverton and up here on this north side too, north of Beaverton. A lot of new construction going on in Hillsborough too. I think the point here, looking at this west side of the river, well, can't count out Lake Oswego and West Lynn. I mean, these are a little bit more upscale areas. I mean, you know, you're right on the river. So you have like water access, but big, beautiful homes, higher concentration of wealth through this corridor here. Stafford as well, but this is more rural. But overall, you know, Lake Oswego, West Lynn, some of the more sought-after areas just south of Southwest Portland, but definitely on the pricier side. But when you look at all of the west side of the river, that kind of makes up the majority of the suburbs of Portland. I mean, the west side, by and large, is, you know, considered the suburbs when people are saying I'm out in the burbs, you know, if you live in Portland. Now, that's not to say that there's not plenty of suburban area on the east side of the river. So if we look on the east side of the river, like I was saying, Portland itself extends much further east than it does west. So if we look at this here and the border, so you can see this western border of Portland, you start to hit Beaverton, Tigard a little bit, but really Beaverton and this northwest Washington County area. And I think it's going to be about like 80 blocks or so, 90 blocks. Let's see if we can see a cross street. There's Olson. Give me a cross street. Well, 64th. And then, you know, a little further out up here, and then it pokes out a little bit, you know, down to like maybe closer to 80th. Anyway, on the east side here, so you have about 70 blocks west, let's call it. On the east side, you're like 174 blocks, you know, 170, 174 blocks. So an extra 100 blocks east than you are west. So that gives a lot more room on this west side, you know, for more suburban areas. All of this that you see on this east side of the river, you know, about half of all of kind of the metro area on the east side is Portland, and it's all really pretty dense, again, more urban feeling residential areas. You know, down in here by the river, again, you know, it's going to be more like entertainment districts, industrial, and you'll get some of that inner southeast, especially once you get out past 205. I mean, you can see it's still really dense. It's really flat too. It's a little more laid out on a grid, so that's another big difference. On the east side, it's going to be more flat. On the west side, it's going to be more, hilly, at least inside of 217 here. So more hilly in here, and then you get out in the Tualatin Valley out here, but much flatter out on the east side overall. And then you do have Clackamas, which really is Happy Valley, Milwaukee, Gladstone, Oregon City, and then Gresham, Troutdale out east here. And you can see this white area shows the urban growth boundaries. So areas like Sandy, Boring, Corbett, these are all a little more rural, quite a bit out of town. So inside of this, metro area, urban growth boundary, again, Troutdale, Gresham, Happy Valley, Clackamas, Oregon City, Milwaukee. Now there's some, quite a big range here. A lot of differences between these areas. Where Gresham, you can see it's just kind of a natural continuation east of Portland. So a lot of what you get in here, maybe not so much in kind of inner southeast, but a lot of what you get around 205 and east, you're going to get in Gresham. Gresham does have this little downtown area, but you can see really just pretty dense residential and these main roads, main highways going through. Gets a little more of a suburban feel once you get to Gresham, though, as opposed to some of these kind of further East Multnomah County areas. Troutdale, really just kind of part of Gresham. As you can see, a natural extension. Wood Village, Fairview as well. These are all different little towns, little suburbs, but this is all really kind of Gresham here when you go east, just due east of Portland. Now you get down south a little bit. Happy Valley, the newest area actually in all of Portland. So average year homes were built here 2010. So it's pretty dense. No surprise, new construction. I mean, they're really packing in houses on those lots. But we saw how dense it was up here, say. It's going to be night and day if you go due south of this East County or Gresham area. So you get into Happy Valley, really cool rolling hills. You kind of, have some rural area just east of you. You have views of Mount Hood. Really nice, big, newly constructed homes in the last 5, 10, 15 years. So this is a really cool area. I think the biggest gripe here is that it's just kind of far. You can see how buried you are down here. And this is all kind of one area here inside of 205, south of 224, the Milwaukee Expressway. There's a little bit of Milwaukee up here as well. But you can get some riverfront living here. I mean, definitely an older area. You can see how close it is to Portland, and kind of a natural extension southeast, or of southeast Portland. So this is an area that is starting to become more popular again. There's definitely not as much of a barrier to entry in terms of pricing. A lot of investors have gone in there and flipped houses and fixed up houses. So Milwaukee, the proximity to Portland, I mean, a lot of people really like it. And then Oregon City kind of stands alone down here on the south side. And you can see you're really surrounded by pretty rural space in Oregon City. So it starts to get pretty rural as you get south and as you get east here. So Oregon City's pretty popular too, but it is far. Just like Happy Valley is. So now, if you look up into Vancouver, Vancouver's really interesting and is becoming more of a destination for people moving to the Portland metro area. There's no state income tax. That's super popular. There is sales tax, but you can just go right across the river there and buy stuff in Portland and avoid the sales tax. Vancouver itself, if we look at Vancouver here, is pretty big. So it's 50 square miles, which is about twice the size of Gresham, the biggest suburb in the Portland metro area. You can see how big it is. The city limit stops pretty abruptly north, but extends along 14 here, all the way out to almost Camas. Vancouver, kind of hit and miss for a lot of people. This riverfront has become more and more popular. They've started to develop this and build this out a little bit. There's definitely some really nice areas. There's some areas that, are a little bit older, maybe feel a little bit more run down. I don't know. That's really just kind of the feedback that I get showing houses and taking people around Vancouver. But I mean, if you're moving to Camas, you're not really moving to Portland. Let's just put it that way. But it's still easy enough to get into the city. But it is pretty far out east here, Camas, Washougal. But up north here, ELEETE, up past Hazeldale into Salmon Creek, really all the way up to Ridgefield, you're getting more and more new construction up here, and really good bang for your buck as far as how much house you can get for your dollar. Again, like around here in ELEETE, a lot of these areas just north of Vancouver. So you do get further away from Portland. Vancouver itself does have plenty to offer. Everything you need is there. It's a decent sized city. But you are, again, you're getting further and further away to be able to access a lot of what Portland offers. And if you're moving to Portland to be in Portland and spend time here, being in Vancouver, it starts to become a little more difficult. So just some thoughts and insights there. Hope that was helpful. I guess one thing I didn't mention, if you don't know, Portland is a tri-county area, really 4-county if you look at Vancouver. This is Clark County, Washington, but Portland itself, you have Multnomah County, which is Portland and Gresham. You have Clackamas County, which is basically everything southeast and on the east side of the river. But Lake Oswego and West Lynn are Clackamas County. Clackamas County actually comes out to about here. And then you have Washington County on the west side, Beaverton, Hillsborough, Tigard, Tualatin, Sherwood. This is going to all be Washington County. So there are some differences there. Definitely something, that we can chat more about as far as what counties, what areas might be a better fit for you, which area might suit you best. But again, just some tidbits there. If you are thinking about moving to the Portland metro area, hope this was helpful.